I really liked it.
I loved it.
Yeah, it's way better than I'd expect any modern horror movie to be, just because there's been so much like crud out there.
There's been so much crud, and also just something as ubiquitous as the Invisible Man. Like, that is something that is so ingrained in culture that you just think, oh, it's going to be really bad. Like, it's as if you see a horror film title that says it's Dracula, it's Frankenstein, it's the Invisible Man. You just think, no, no, no.
And especially when you consider that this was the second in the series of Dark Universe movies. Like, after The Mummy, this was supposed to be the next one to keep building the universe.
Yeah, so, I was wondering about that. Was this actually supposed to be part of that Dark Universe?
Yes.
Wow.
But it seems pretty clear to me that after The Mummy was absolutely awful, they like retooled this a lot, or they pushed it down the road and were like, okay, we need to actually make a real movie for once instead of just like this disgusting universe cash-in nonsense. I think they did that quite well. I'm glad they didn't have Russell Crowe show up and go, "Welcome to a universe of
gods and monsters,"
or whatever stuff he says.
Right. And I don't know if you know this, but Lee Wannell was one of the creators of Saw. And then after that, he kind of didn't really hear that much from him. And yeah, he directed Insidious 3, Upgrade, which I hear is really good. And then he directed this, and I was looking up some interviews, and it's amazing because he really understands how to adapt something into the modern day and age, not like Little Women. Because he talks about how all of these monsters used to be scary, but now they're just everywhere. Everyone knows about the monsters. It's like Freddy Krueger. Like, there's been like 10 films about him, and everyone knows what the threat is. Everyone knows how dangerous he is. So there's no fear factor about it. It kind of goes back to what you were saying about Little Women, about how the issue is that back then, you know, people used to fantasize about the rich and the wealthy. And
yeah, absolutely. And it did a great job of advancing it, like you're saying, to the modern age with basically Invisible Man is now he's like a Elon Musk, you know, billionaire, but he's also a super crazy stalker who's like is like a tyrant in his mind in the way that he controls other people and manipulates people.
Yeah, and not to mention that this entire film, I mean, really the umbrella, if you were to put it over the film, is all about an abuseful relationship, which goes into him, Lee Wannell, adapting that original idea of Invisible Man, bringing it into the modern age and saying, you know, this would actually be a really good metaphor for abusive relationships. And I don't know if this was purposeful or not, but I kind of saw it just everywhere. He sprinkles it throughout the film. Because I was kind of thinking like, okay, that's a cool stylistic piece that he chose, that his entire mansion is windows everywhere. You can just see inside of it. And I almost got to thinking like, is he trying to say that relationships that are abusive, you think that you can see everything because here it is, it's open up to the elements. You can see inside, you can see what's going on, but is that really what's going on? And then that kind of plays into the entire invisibility factor. Abuse is invisible. And sometimes we don't always believe the person, which also fits into the whole idea of the Invisible Man, because he's abusive to her, but no one can see the abuse, but she believes it. So why don't you?
I like that a lot. I think there's so much good imagery in that the mansion setting, particularly in the first scene, which I thought was fantastic. We just get all we're seeing is her waking up in bed, and it's this beautiful home, and it's like middle of the night, and apparently her husband or someone is sleeping right next to her. Her deep-seated terror is so palpable, and just it says so much with no dialogue. The whole scene has no dialogue, I think.
Yeah, no, it doesn't at all. And it perfectly communicates to the audience exactly what's going on without saying a word of dialogue. Gently, she takes the covers away, and then you just see his hand over her. And automatically that's already communicating to you that, okay, maybe he's a little bit possessive. And then you see her tiptoeing, and she's pretty quiet. And then you see her looking over at the alarm clock, and it says it's 3:41 to 3:42. And so we already can tell that she can't sleep, and then she's going to get drugs. And you can start piecing together that she's been doing this for a while. Like she's tried to figure out her escape.
Yeah, but but there's this dissonance between all these things we're getting from her and like this beautiful mansion with these, like you're saying, these huge windows, which the idea of a huge window is that you can see everything, but it's in this like compound in the middle of like a forest in like the rural area where nobody can see what's going on. So it's like the appearance of something that's beautiful, but it's so isolated and so controlled that it's not.
Right. And one of the most effective pieces, I think, of it is that we don't see him hit her in the very opening scene of the film. We don't see him being abusive or anything like that, but I believe her because of her performance. I don't know anything about this guy, but you see her visceral reaction to him and you believe her, and it's tense. So much tension within the first 10 minutes, and I've never seen this guy as much flinch at a fly, and I'm already feeling terrified of him.
Exactly. Like a lesser film would have like preceded this scene with a scene of him yelling at her or throwing something at her or something. And then, okay, we've seen him be a total monster. Now she's going to run away. But that would be so much less interesting than what they did here.
Yeah. And then you see her go down to the basement, and then she's changing all of the security cameras. So that shows that she's familiar with what's the entire compound is like. And then you also get to see a little bit of character background to the guy of who he is and how intellectual and smart he is. Then you also see that she has a caring heart because the dog's there, and then she tries to let the dog go. So lots of characterization being pushed into such a tiny amount of time, but without saying a word of anything. It's great.
It is, and also that I got from it the fact that she wasn't like restrained or anything, and the fact that she had to she knew all those specific details that had to be taken care of means this is probably the first time she's tried it, because she knew that like if she had done it in any other way, or if she'd tried and failed, that the results would have been, disastrous or something.
Then it goes into where she finally runs into her sister in the car, and then you see him, he finally catches up to her. Then he punches the window, and then you see him just kneel down and pick up the little medicine bottle that she actually left out on the driveway, and you see his hand all bloodied. And instantly from that, you can see just how far this guy is willing to go just to control someone. You just see this bloodied hand. And, a lot of complaints that I've actually been seeing about this film is that people are saying, oh, the mystery is solved. Like, you already know that he's the Invisible Man. But I don't think that that's an issue for this film, because you're not looking at it for the Invisible Man aspect. I mean, this isn't necessarily about a mystery. This is about suspense. We know that he's invisible. We know that it's about an abusive relationship. And so it's not necessarily about a mystery. It's about abusive relationships with this invisible suit going on.
Yeah, and I really like that theme. There's a couple of things I would have liked to see them do a little more with. So the first leg of the movie is about Cecilia after she escapes from Adrian. She barely gets away. Then it is revealed that he's killed himself, which provides a huge sense of relief for her, because, wow, that's exactly what she would have wanted. And she also gets millions of dollars in inheritance that was specifically like willed to her. At the beginning of the movie, she's starting to relax from this like hyper tense, like paranoid state. She's starting to relax. She's say, my friend's daughter, I'm going to give her money to go to college. And, you actually see her smiling and starting to feel happy.
Yeah, not to mention that it's effectively communicated yet again without saying a word. When you see her going out to the mailbox, and that's such a big deal to her, and the sound effects are used so well in this film, because you see her foot just like make just a slight touch to the outside world, and then you hear this. Yeah. You can just automatically tell it's a big deal to her. Yeah,
the sound design was good as well. There were so many great moments where it starts to get you into that mind space of someone who is traumatized and paranoid, not even for a bad reason. Like, this is for a good reason. Like, this is a hyper controlling guy who would chase her to the ends of the earth if he was still alive. And then the hints start to gradually crop up that, wait, is he dead or not? And there's several great moments where she is basically suspecting or thinking that something must be there, but then it shows that, well, there isn't, or it's actually nothing. Yeah, so go on. What did you think about that element of the movie?
I loved it so much. And I was thinking about it while I was watching it. And then before we did this, I looked up some interviews with Lee Wannell and all that. And he actually talks about that. In the interview, he was saying, can I make empty corners or empty spaces scary? Can I do that? And he did. It was so effective. He has a lot of shots where there's a lot of negative space, and there's not a whole lot of close-ups in this film, which is great, because when they actually happen, then it feels so much more intense and your attention is so much more drawn to it. But with these negative spaces, you are constantly feeling this tension, because he could be there. He could be there and he could be doing anything at any moment. He could be listening. And what's great is that it works with your imagination. So your imagination fills in those spaces of all this fear that is being generated by yourself. The film is helping you, but you're creating that fear. And then he even goes on to say that there was someone on Twitter that said this movie will do for empty corridors in your house what Jaws did for the beach or for the water. And it's true. He did such an effective job with that. So typically in horror films, they like to make you feel claustrophobic. There's a lot of tight angles. They like to make you feel like that you don't have a lot of control. But in here, there's not too many close-ups because I think that they want to use as much wide shots as possible, because now it's just this unsettling feeling of he can be in the room with you at any point. So I think it kind of took the horror trope and did something a little bit different with it, which I was really happy to see.
Absolutely, yeah. I did have a couple issues with it, the way it was executed, though. In this first act, as much as I love the elements we've discussed, the one thing I didn't like was that it wasn't quite ambiguous enough about whether he was dead or not. Because building up to when he's finally revealed to be there, moments where it's pretty obvious that he's in the room with her, it's not really ambiguous, and that kind of deflated the suspense for me, because I think it would have been fantastic if we genuinely didn't know if he was dead or not. Like if we were to start to believe he is dead, she might just be crazy. Maybe there is no like guy in an invisible suit. Like that could be awesome. But I never got there. I always like, they explain that the bad guy is like an optics genius or something. He has this like $1 billion company with making optics. Like,
right?
How obvious? Like, come on, like there's got to be like hundreds of scientists that have been working on that with him. It wouldn't be a mystery that he's been working on like invisible technology or something. And when she starts to say, well, I think he's actually alive, he's got like some kind of invisible suit, everyone like kind of treats her like she's crazy, despite the fact that, you know, they didn't ever, you know, his body wasn't, you know, publicly visible or anything. And that was
even in the phone when they say that he's dead. There's if you actually pause the film and read it, it says that the man that was known for creating optic cameras or something like that. Like
right.
He's known for that. So
right, that makes it a little too obvious, I guess. And then there's moments where like the scene where she's in bed with the daughter and they're just sleeping, and then the covers get pulled off her, and then we see flashes of the camera, like he's taking pictures of her. Like that makes it unambiguous that he's there. And then like while he's invisible, he's standing on the blanket. I would have liked that scene so much more if instead she wakes up, there's no covers on her. She looks around, oh, there's the chair in the corner. It looks like someone might be sitting there. And then she throws the blanket over it, no one's there. And then she pulls the blanket back, and then it gets caught. And then have some ambiguousness to whether it's being stood on or it's just caught under the rug or whatever, you know. I think it would have been so much more effective if by the time that she actually throws the paint on him and finds him, we might actually be thinking maybe she's kind of crazy. Like, but there's just too many things before that make it too clear that he's actually there. It's still effective, I think, but that is a key thing that would have brought it to the next level for me. The first Child's Play movie, for the first like 45 minutes of that movie, you actually don't know what's happening. Like, you don't see the bad guy. You don't see Chucky as being a living crazy doll. You kind of see it from the parents' perspective where, wow, this kid, is making up these stories. Like, it makes sense that that's what they would think. But in this, it didn't really make sense that nobody believes her. Everyone thinks she's going crazy because the audience sees too much that validates that perspective.
So for me, I don't mind that it's obvious that he's dead or not, because one, it kind of gives it away in the title. I mean, it's the Invisible Man. So,
but that's the thing, because if there was question about it, then in the middle of that sequence, we might start thinking, whoa, is the Invisible Man just a metaphor for like a trauma victim's damage and how they keep seeing this person everywhere, and it's still affecting their life even though the person is dead? That's an interesting like thematic layer to it that could have come more to the fore, and like it would have subverted that by saying, no, there is no guy, he's dead. And then we're having to question that, because you're right, like going into the movie, okay, there's going to be a guy in an invisible suit, but if the movie is explicitly setting it up like, well, no, maybe there's not, there actually is, it might not be, I think that would have been an interesting wrinkle.
Right, that would have been, but then that almost goes into a completely different kind of film, because what I'm fine with right now is that it's a film about just this guy being invisible, and so I like that there is no necessarily mystery about it, because when you go into a film, you're going in to feel emotions, you're not necessarily going in to think. Because if we just go into a movie just to analyze and to think, then we're not really experiencing the movie. Because even in the synopsis, I believe if you go online and you look it up on Google, it even says that when Adrian fakes his own suicide or fakes his own death. So I'm fine with it the way it is, because if it was a mystery, then I feel like that, okay, well, I already know the end, so why would I rewatch the film? But since this is a film about this abuse that's been going on for a long time, I'm more intrigued just to see the emotional journey that she's going on. And you know what was so interesting is that, yeah, there's a lot of points in this film that kept on being brought up where I was thinking, like, my critic came out, my inner critic, and I was thinking, oh, what? Oh, wait, that's going on? Wait, why? Why is that going on? But what's interesting is that I was so emotionally involved with her character and what was going on that it was almost an afterthought. I actually didn't really start critically tearing apart the film until afterwards, which shows that it does have problems, yes, but in the overall aspect, the overall experience I had with it, the emotions that I felt triumphed all of the negativity that I do have with it, that it surfaced as a stronger film than something that I would just critique to death, if that makes sense.
Okay, I hear that. Yeah. I totally agree that the overall experience you have of the film is what's important, and anyone can go nitpick a film, which is never what I try to do. So those issues that I raised so far, like, those were things that I think got in the way of me enjoying the film as much as I might have, and I just think from a construction and narrative standpoint, I think that would have been more effective. But you know, I was still enjoying myself, but that's just the way my brain works, though. Just the editing part of my brain is...
Yeah, no. I mean, trust me, I have the same thing. Like, it was in my head. I was thinking about it because I have multiple notes here where I've starred them, and I just think to myself, wait, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense. But what's interesting is that the more that I understand and the more I critique films, the more I'm starting to realize, at least for myself, that if I become so emotionally enthralled that the issues that do come up, I'm not as enthralled by the issues because it's done such a good job of enthralling me into that emotional world that the issues that do pop up don't really bother me. But I guess, do you want to get into spoiler territory? Because I could bring up the point that actually really, it deflated all the attention for me.